Now that you have a general understanding of the listening exam in terms of its structure and how it's set up, I'm going to now present for you some basic information about the different question types that you're going to encounter or see on the listening exam. So there basically are 5 different question types that you're going to have to deal with on the listening exam. They all are some variation of a fill the blank or multiple choice question. You have the fill the blank traditional question where it's a sentence that's either in the middle of the line, middle of the sentence, or a blank line at the end. You also have a map or diagram, which could be fill the blank or multiple choice. You have a table or flow chart, which is fill the blank. You have the multiple choice standard, where you have to pick one answer, A, B, C, or D, or you have the multiple choice choose two, where you have to choose 2 correct answers from choices of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or A, B, C, D, E. And then you have a matching question where you might have some selections in a box, and the questions have something that the person said or something connected to the person, and you have to match. Again, that is a form of multiple choice. So first of all, let's go ahead and go over the fill the blank question types so that when you see these question types on the exam, you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do. You'll know that it's a fill the blank question. You'll know what to expect. You'll know the strategy. So let's go ahead and move forward with our examples of the fill the blank questions. So as I said, you have a fill the blank traditional question type. And this is where you have just blank lines that you have to fill out. There's some language before the blank line, such as number 2 that you see here on the screen, or like number 3, where the blank line is in the middle of the sentence. But the strategy for a traditional blank line question is very, 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 very straightforward. You have to, of course, underline the keywords that are before the blank line or after the blank line. That's very, very important. You have to basically underline those keywords because those keywords are going to point you to the answer choice. They're going to point you to the answer choice. In addition, you want to make sure that you underline the noun, the subject and the object, because that's going to help you know when the answer choice is being given. But in terms of the answer will always connect to that language that's before and after the blank line. Also keep in mind that they're most likely are going to use synonyms here. So use synonyms, or they're going to probably maybe reorder the sentence where they say the object first instead of the subject. In addition to that, you got to make sure that you write your answers immediately when you hear them. Okay, if you hear something that you think is the answer, write it right away. Don't wait. That's not something that you want to do. You don't want to do that. The other question type that we have to deal with is a fill the blank question that is a table. Again, it's still a straightforward fill the blank type of question, but it's in the table format, right? Just the table format. So you see, like here for number 7 on the screen here, it says kilometers. You're going to be listening out for a certain number. And in the next lecture, we're going to explain to you about the tricks and the traps that they use. The tricks and the traps that they use that make these questions somewhat challenging. It's a table here, but it goes in order. Like all fill the blank questions, it goes in order. You want to write your answers immediately and listen for synonyms or listen for possible reordering of the sentence. But here, like in this one, there are no sentences on the table, right? This one is very, very straightforward. And this one that you're looking at right now is probably from section 1. The next fill the blank question that you can encounter will most likely happen in section number 2, and it's a map. But it's still basically a fill the blank question. You're just filling in the blank lines on a map. So when you're doing a map question, you want to note all of the map areas, not just where the blank lines are, but note all of the map areas. So in terms of where the lake is, the reception area, the rare breed section, the grazing area, the marsh, all of the areas. The reason why is when they're giving you the answer to number 12, they're going to connect it to grazing area and marsh. They're going to connect it some kind of way. You also want to know your directions, north, south, east, and west, because they're going to again connect answer choices to directions. Also, what you want to make sure that you do or that you're aware of is that very often with a map question, they'll take you back to the reception area and start over to take you in a different direction. The map area can be challenging for some students, but you have to really, really watch out for directional language. That's what they're testing here. They're testing your ability to recognize directional language: next to, above, northeast corner of, across, next to, below. Right? So that's what you have to be able to really, really listen out for with that kind of question type. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the multiple choice question types that you're going to encounter on the IELTS listening section. You of course have the traditional type, where you have a question like number 15 and you have answer choices A, B, and C to choose from. And then it's going to move to question number 16, then 17, then 18. All of the questions go through order, go in order. And so what you're doing here is you have to be able to quickly read through the questions, and you want to underline the keywords in the questions. Underline the keywords in the questions. I didn't say the answer choices. Underline the keywords in the questions, because that's what's going to help you. That's what's going to help you to be able to know when the answer is being said. Now, if you've gone through and you've underlined all of the keywords in the questions and you still have time, then you can go back and maybe look at some of the language in the answer choices. But you have to be careful doing that, because what you're doing here with this type of multiple choice question is you're not listening for exact words that they say. That's not what you're listening for. They're going to connect wrong answers to exact language. So very often when students are looking at the answer choices and they're saying, okay, let me look at these words in the answer choices, and then when I hear one of those words, I'm going to pick that answer. That's the wrong choice, right? Correct answers are going to use synonyms. The way it works is when they're having a conversation, they're going to say the answer, or if it's a solo presentation, they're going to say the keyword language from the question, and then they're going to say the answer, but they're going to use synonyms. Okay, they're going to use synonyms. Then you have the multiple choice question, which is a pick two style of question. It's a pick two style of question. And here they're going to be, they're asking you to make two choices. So in the example that you see there to the right, it says, which two hobbies was Thor very interested in as a youth? And you have to pick the two choices that he says he was interested in. All right, the two choices. In terms of answer placement, it doesn't matter if when you write your answers, if you make number 10D and number 11B, or you write it B and D, it does not matter, right? It does not matter. Now, again, most likely when you hear the answer choices, the correct answer choices will use synonyms. They may not say the word climbing directly or the word hunting directly. They may use language to describe what that is. They're testing if you can make that match. That's the test. That's the test. The wrong answers will very often use exact language. Now, sometimes when you have it like with the first one where it's single words, A, B, C, D, E, it's possible that a correct answer might be stated exactly. However, when we look at 23 and 24, and you see where the answer choices are much longer, Again, we're probably talking about the difference between having a question, having a question style in part 2 and part 3. But the questions in 23 and 24, or the answer choices, are much longer. And so they're going to use synonyms to make it more difficult. But remember, answer placement does not matter. And then, of course, you could have a multiple choice question where you have to choose from a box. And here, of course, an answer choice can be used more than once. Because if you look to the right, you have 6 questions and you have 3 choices in the box. So an answer choice can be used more than once. So here what you want to do now, keep in mind the questions go in order. So you're going to hear the language for 15, then 16, then 17, then 18. Be aware they may use synonyms. They may not say booking holidays. They may say reserving a vacation, right? But it goes in order. They're not going to give number 19 and then give number 15. It goes in order. But you want to note the language in the answer choice, in the language in the questions, so you recognize when they're giving that answer. But also, really, really pay attention to the answer choices A, B, and C. Identify the keywords. So, for example, in A, you have the word encouraged. You have to really, really think about what synonym language are they going to be able to use for that word, because they're not, and when in the conversation or in the solo presentation, they're not going to say the word encouraged. They're going to say synonyms of that, and you have to be able to pick up on that match. They're not going to say it's against the rules. They're going to give synonyms of that. Okay? Now, in the upcoming lectures, when I'm really going through strategy application, I point out the synonym language that they're using so you can really, really see how that's being done. Right, and here is the same choosing from a box question, but you can see from the numbers 37 to 40, now we're in section number 4, and look at how they've increased the difficulty level. The answer choices in the box, the answer choices in the box are now 6 instead of 3. The answer choices in the box are longer. The questions are a little bit longer. But that's how they really raise the level of difficulty. Same question type, but that's what they're doing to increase the difficulty level. Okay, and coming up next, I'm going to give you some listening question tips, some advice, and some suggestions so you can have a lot of success on the listening part of the exam. Thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon.